Hi guys, and welcome to yet another episode of Office Hours at iZooto. Today we have with us Ahmed Kaludi. Ahmed, did I get it right?
Yes, Ahmed Kaludi.
Ahmed Kaludi. Sorry for that. Ahmed Kaludi is an entrepreneur and developer. Ahmed runs a company called Magazine 3.n, where
Correct.
they've been creating world-class products around WordPress specifically for the last several years. Uh, Ahmed's specialty remains building and scaling a bootstrap business. Right? Their products have touched hundreds and thousands of publishers across the globe. Uh, their flagship product, which runs under the brand of AMP for WP, has been downloaded more than what I think 8 million times. Is the right number?
Something like that. Yeah.
8 million. That's an incredible number, right? Incredible
Yeah.
number to sort of validate your passion and your dedication towards the WordPress community. So, Ahmed,
Yes.
welcome aboard. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I would love to share my experience and wisdom with you.
Thanks, Ahmed, for that. Right. So, Ahmed, let's sort of dive in straight away. Right.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, the last decade has been about mobile. We know that.
Hmm. Right.
Uh, the mobile search surpassed desktop search, I think, about 2 years back. At the same
Right.
time, mobile advertising has really gone through the roof. Right? We started last decade, I think 2012, 2010 with a recession. We ended the decade with another recession.
Yeah.
But what has sort of definitely rocketed through all this time is the mobile consumption, right? Thanks to
Right.
Google and thanks to Android. Right? Now, one thing which has sort of definitely catalyzed the mobile growth, right,
Hmm.
apart from Google and Reliance Geo and every other internet provider in the world, is the AMP project, right?
Right.
Accelerated mobile pages project. Is that right?
Correct.
Correct. Right. Now, uh, I know for a fact that AMP started in 2016. Is that right? Or
It was started in 2016.
16. Correct.
Yeah.
Because I remember AMP was featured in one of the Chrome conferences which Google does.
Right.
Right. And since then, AMP today, fast forward, is now available. 52 million domains currently use the AMP technology.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you guys have been one of the champions of AMP. Right. Now, before we sort of go into AMP and AMP for WP, what do you guys do on a daily basis? If you could just sort of give us a bit more background about yourself, what do you do on a daily basis? What's been the journey like so far? Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, this journey started with working with publishers, and I was very closely working with them, and we were trying to solve their problems. So one of the biggest problems that they had at a time. So this was in 2010, I believe, when we started. So in 2009, I was freelancing, and 2010, I decided to build my own product to help publishers. So at that point, I realized that there is a need in the market, and that need was specifically to the front end part, which was how we will display the news and how the user will actually react to that. So that really affects on the bounce rate. So if a user is trying to read one news, and if the front end is appealing, they would rather go on, they'll do more page views and all. So that's where the whole the bug started. And slowly onwards, we started to discover more issues and more problems that we could solve. And the whole point of solving a problem was that what if we could solve a problem for an industry rather than doing just for one or two people. So that was the whole point. But I still and to this date work closely with some of the handful publishers through whom I get a lot of feedback from. So then onwards, so we used to create themes, and in that theme we used to build some features for publishers, and then slowly it started to move to the plugin side. I think in WordPress, there was no such thing as a plugin industry. There was no such thing as plugin business. I remember talking to a lot of developers outside India, and they were like saying, can you make money building plugins? And at that time I used to think like plugins is nothing but a piece of software. Either you build it like SaaS or it's in a zip file, it doesn't matter. It's nothing but a software. So but WordPress was so young at early stage that it was hard to think of it as a as an industry, or a market as we think of it right now. Obviously today you can see there are a lot of big players like Elementor and Jetpack and WooCommerce making millions of dollars just on a yearly basis. But at that time in 2012-13 it was like unheard of. So we were sticking to our guts because we started, I started, like I said, in the recession 2009, and at that point I had a high demand, so I'm always used to creating businesses in a recession. It's a some strange kind of so what it did to me is that it actually clicked one thing in my mind, and that is that I have to stay profitable at day one. That was always my goal, because I don't know when the next, when we don't know when next bubble is going to burst from, and when that's next wave is coming from. Obviously we had all thought of this financial bubble that was coming, or the real estate bubble, but nobody was aware of this COVID-19 situation. So thankfully we are still profitable and operating in a great strength. So going back to how we started, so in 2016, while we were solving the need of a publisher, we were talking to, I remember I was talking to my friend Tarun. He's handling telecom talk. So, and there were a couple of other publishers from outside. There was one from Middle East, and then there was another one from USA. I don't remember his name now, but so these people were saying that we've been talking to Google, and they're coming up with this new project, and can we build that into our existing system? So we thought that okay, let's see what that is. And in a couple of days they got out with the AMP announcement, and at that point people are like, why would we create two different experiences for the users? And because essentially when you install AMP, you also have a non-AMP going with your you know website experience. So at that point people were thinking, and to this date people still think of this problem, but AMP was started to you know because there was a time when Google, I remember I read a research report from Google in 2019. The average page size, and you can Google this as well, and I might not have the exact figures, but this is true that in 2012 the average page size was around 1.5 MB. Now in 2015 it was around 4 MB, and right now in around 2019 or 18 or 19 it was around 7 MB. So and before 2010 and in 8 or 9 it was like around 1 MB. And I remember I saw this news from, there was some geeky developer blog that was doing a survey 2007. They had said that, oh my god, the pages are like, average page size has gone to and around 1 MB. So I mean in 2007 that was a big deal, because at that time we didn't have this 3G or 4G, I believe. It was all GPRS connection and all going on. So I believe 3G was a luxury at that time. So 1 MB was a big deal. Now right now an average page size today is around 8 MB.
That's an incredible weight for
Yes,
for a for a mobile website. Right?
exactly.
8
So
MB.
yeah, so right today we don't feel that. The reason is that we have a great network strength going on. But nobody knows about this problem better than Google, because Google have to, go through the whole web. They have to crawl that, they have to save that database into their own system, and they have to keep crawling it. So nobody knows about this pain better than Google. So they realized that, and this was a point when they, now talking about this 2010 to like 16, right? This was a time when people saw the Android going from like being just a project to a system or a platform where the whole world is relying on, right? So people like you, there was there was a part of industry which used to laugh at Google, like, why are you even building this Android?
Correct. Yeah.
And now those exact same people are trying to build something on top of, they're trying to get a piece of that cake.
True.
So now Google realized in this whole experience that what if there was a framework. They realized that web does not have such framework, and over the period of time they have built Angular. But Angular was again built on JavaScript. It was solving a specific need, but there was no such, because in apps, you see that we have to follow certain types of rules. I mean, you can't just get an Android component in an iOS device or app, right? Because there's a framework. It's a framework. You have to run it. Otherwise, your app will not compile. That's why you are forced to follow some certain standards. And in HTML and JavaScript, that was not the case. So Google realized that we need a framework on which the apps and the softwares could build, so we could actually understand how people are using it and we can enhance that technology. So that is the reason why Google actually built it, to
Right.
actually replace HTML like they did with the Chrome.
Correct. Interesting. So Ahmed, now help me understand, right? What makes AMP today the number one investment for publishers on mobile? What exactly? Let's just sort of break. So you've given us a great context of the problem itself and how mobile websites or how websites were just loaded back in the day, and they're getting fatter and fatter as we go along.
Right.
While the connectivity is improving, there is a part of the world which is not able to access the internet or content at a speed that you and I can at its
Right.
times, right? So help us understand what makes AMP such a compelling option for publishers today.
Right. So like you said, it's getting, the pages are getting fatter and fatter. So AMP just sheds all the unnecessary fat from that whole experience and makes it very fast. And we all know from the research and all that the faster experience means better conversions, better page views, right? So I have seen, uh, working with a lot of publishers, if they are adopting AMP, they are having at least 25 to 30% increment in their page views. So two reasons. I think the fundamental reason. So actually, people think that having an AMP is nothing but just it's a part of SEO, right? So if you have AMP, it's better for your SEO. That's not the only point. If you have AMP, uh, people are gonna use it more often, because we have seen through the working with like thousands of users, we have seen that if you have an AMP, and if you are if a user is going to click that page and it's gonna load up fast, they're just gonna quickly scan through it and then move to the next page, because it needs to work with your mind. Like today we're not reading it, nobody reads it, right? We are just seeing it and analyzing it. We just analyze the content and that's it. We hardly read few words out of it.
We just skim
So
through it.
exactly. So the web pages needs to be fast enough. So I think 20 to 30% increment in traffic is what we have seen with AMP. So if a user is, if a publisher, now it's not important for everyone right now. Google is just testing this with publishers, and if it works fine, Then, and right now we have seen a lot of local businesses opening their doors to AMP. So
Mm-hmm.
they are building their, so we have many agencies. I remember one particular agency in Australia. They are building all their local business clients on AMP. So they have around 30 local businesses in Australia, and their primary website is on AMP. So this has been a trend, and people do prefer AMP as a default framework, because if they are creating a new website, they would rather go with the AMP, because they know like it's easier for them to maintain.
Right, right, right.
There are a couple of complex aspects to it as well,
Mhm. Yeah,
because AMP is built on JavaScript, and there are JavaScript validations on that. So a couple of uh, technical aspects are there, but I think over the period of time we are gonna overcome it.
right. You know what? It's very interesting, right? Because I remember back in the day when ATMs were introduced in this country, in India, the first bank which went to the government of India and RBI specifically, resisting that, hey, you know what? In broad daylights, there are robbers who steal banks.
Hmm.
And you think you will put money in a boxed machine in an open shop like structure and people will access that money
Hmm.
and nobody will steal it? And the government said yes. Fast forward, right? The bank that has the highest number of ATMs today in this
Hmm.
country is SBI.
Right.
You know, it's just amazing that how people, how companies, how organizations eventually come around, right? And of course, when it's the forcing hand of God. God in this case, obviously, is Google. Uh, people, everybody will just fall in place. Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Ahmed, so we spoke about that. AMP is just not about SEO. AMP
Hmm.
is also about
User experience.
user experience, right? Nobody ever said, give me a slower mobile site.
Right.
That just did not happen ever,
Yeah.
right? We can all sort of agree on that. So, Emma,
Exactly.
do you then also are you then also saying that it's just not publishers who should think about AMP? AMP is really just a framework for every single business who's
Right.
trying to get people on their mobile site to consume content. No matter
Correct.
whether you are, a New York Times or whether you are a HubSpot
Right.
or a WordPress for the matter as well. Right? WordPress is a software business. Right?
Exactly.
Why should they not be having an AMP site? Because people read WordPress blogs, people read about WordPress all the time on their mobile as well. I do that, you do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now AMP started off. We know, for a fact that AMP started off as a bare bones framework. AMP would strip the page completely of all fancy frills, right?
Hmm.
But a lot of things have changed since then, right?
Right.
For a 4-year-old technology, it has moved really fast,
Really
right?
fast. True.
If you could just sort of give us a quick overview of how it has evolved over the last few years, right? And then also more importantly, what do you think is in store for us in future?
Right. So one of the I'll just give you a couple of examples of what we've built recently in past couple of 1 or 2 years, and compared to if we were to think about building that in the 2016, it would have been impossible. So we recently built the whole WooCommerce. We have this premium option called WooCommerce Pro. So you obviously know it's a WooCommerce is an e-commerce platform on WordPress. So today, we are powering the whole e-commerce experience on AMP, including checkout and credit card processing, including the gateway validations, and then after purchasing, redirect to the login page, and then and it checks if it's logged in. Then user can go into their own dashboard and download whatever files they want to get, and the whole experience was just impossible if you were to ask me in 2017. So we we are obviously the first ones who build this. Interesting thing about us is that if somebody tells me that okay, this and this, that's impossible, so that really interests me. I'm like, now this is something we should do. Now it's not just the case with every other impossible thing. It's just that the problem that I'm trying to solve if I want to solve it, I will go ahead with it. And obviously there has to be someone who needs to pick it and do it. So that really interests I. So for what I'm trying to say is, impossible is not the word in our dictionary. So we built gateway checkout and everything else in the WooCommerce, and it basically automatically takes over the whole WooCommerce experience and make it automatically into the AMP. So the interesting and complex part about WooCommerce that people don't understand is that WooCommerce has thousands of different small add-ons built on top of it. So we have built in a way that those are also compatible now. So we've reached to like 80 to 90% of the compatibility of whole WooCommerce
Amazing,
marketplace.
amazing.
So and that there was a time when there was a customer who was using this for online bus booking, and we were puzzled there because they some for some reason they used some sort of an add-on which had a date picker into it. Now you have to pick the date, and you know the price was changing every day, how hotels and airlines does it. So that was a challenge. We overcome that as well. So something like these things, I mean, you can't build this without a heavy JavaScript lifting, and we did that with AMP without doing a lot of heavy lifting. It was already done for us. We just have to connect some of the APIs. Second thing I believe, which you would be aware of because that is very popular in publishers, uh, which is called infinite scrolling. So infinite scrolling was really not possible. So when you keep scrolling, for people who might not be aware of, if you keep scrolling down, the next article will keep on loading, right? Now at the same time, the URL should also change in the omnibar. So that was an important aspect, because if you swipe and if you go to the next article and the URL does not change, suddenly, like, so we have a publisher with 10 million or 15 million traffic, and those people, if they swipe and they move to the next article, and if they don't, the URL does not change, the whole social sharing is going to mess up. So it was an important aspect, so we did overcome with that. So
So,
those sort of things.
but just if I just help me understand what enabled you to sort of pull these things off, right? I know for a fact that for the longest time, third-party JS were not allowed on AMP,
Yes.
right? So if you sort of also walk us through, so while you sort of done amazing things, when you built incredible products on top of AMP, if you sort of also outline what from the AMP side enabled you to sort of do that.
So all of these components were already available and built by AMP, the AMP HTML team. But the whole thing was that it was all in the documentation, and you know the technical documentation is too techy for us to figure out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So the whole resource is just available there. We just have to pick and start building it. It's just that it's the first time somebody is picking the hammer, so obviously it's going to be a little hard. But they have a great community of developers going on, and whenever we have an issue, they are very proactive about it. So Google is really serious about building this stuff. And another thing we built is PWA within the AMP. So all of these things were already available in the AMP component itself, and some of them are properly documented, some of them are not. But we know that because what we do is we keep an eye on the GitHub development. So the whole development is done on the GitHub, which is a community for developers. And we have a good idea about how they are doing, what they are doing. So since we, so there are two aspects of this. I closely work every day with a lot of publishers trying to understand what they need, what are the common problems, and how we are solving it. Google is also doing the same. So they are aware of the problems of a publisher or the industry as much as we are. And their developers are building those core infrastructure or core architect of that whole problem, so that developers like us can solve it.
Okay.
So it's really the we are only doing the 50% of the job. Google is doing the rest of the job as well.
Right. So now help me understand, right? From a projection point of view, from a
Hmm.
from a future trend point of view, right? what would be your picks, as in if you were to sort of pick up, let's say, three projects today for the next 1 year, right? What would those be?
One would be the mobile optimization. So one of the things that we are working on is swipe. Like I said, infinite scrolling. It it's a vertical scrolling, right? We are trying to work on horizontal scrolling. So essentially, I think in the future there will be no clicking and refreshing. It will be just swipe everywhere. Just how we use Instagram, right? So either you swipe bottom or the left or right or top, refresh, right? That's about it. And the content is gonna load automatically. That improves the user experience and saves a lot of data and time. So that's one future we are gonna. I mean, that is definitely one of the things we are gonna see, and everything else is gonna be just dynamic. And there are already technologies which can make this whole experience dynamic with just couple of bits of code. So it will not be too hard for everyone to get onto this trend. Another trend I would say is uh, is again related to the mobile, which is PWA. We are also building a product on top of on PWA, and it's basically the number one PWA plugin in the market right now. So because there was a lot of publishers and users, they want to keep having their own loyal base of users.
Mhm.
There is no such thing as active users for websites. There is only traffic. So all the analytical companies and nowadays all the entrepreneurs or bloggers or whatever you want to call it, webmasters, they're also focusing on this active users. Now they used to do this through emailing, right? They used to, if they would collect the emails, and you would just send out an email blast to, suppose, say 10,000 people, and only 30 would have of them would reply. And these 30 would be like very common names, so you would know, okay, these are my active users. Or there's, or might be 100 people. So they used to collect data like that, but now that whole thing is changing. So people want to keep an track of active users, so they would actually know how that software is built or how that website is used, and get an actual feedback, and then they can improve upon that. So so PWA is a very important aspect in that. And PWA also helps people to stay engaged with a brand. And there are also a couple of changes in the habits every day. Like, so I have noticed personally that if there is a, if there's a website that I really care about, I'm gonna add it to my home screen. uh, Even though they have an app, sometimes I try to find alternative ways to add to their home screen, because I specifically need that page. I want to read that what are the updates on that page, and I don't want to remember it every. So previously we used to have these bookmarks, and those are kind of getting replaced with 3 or 4 types of ways. PW is a very very important aspect in that, I believe. So that's the second thing I'm going to work on. And third would be, I think it's a very long shot, but Fuchsia or something like that, they are working on, Google is working on this new uh, OS, which they are you would be aware of. They are working on some new OS called Fuchsia, I think.
Yeah.
So
Not this one. Yeah.
it's a hybrid application. It's a hybrid operating system,
Okay.
which would be basically work on, so it will work on every other device. It's a very lightweight. Again, it's like an Android kind of a thing. So it's built with Dart.js is a new language that they have built. So they are
Okay.
creating this whole ecosystem of operating system plus um, operating system plus the application framework plus the whole developer hub for everyone. So
Right.
that really seems interesting to me, because right now those two doors are really, I mean, they're really closed. I mean, Apple is very close.
Yeah.
You, for for somebody to, you know, build a browser or search engine is like, it's very tough. I mean,
True.
there are only, in desktop today there are only few things you can do, and it's extremely tough to make a desktop applications compared to mobile. So they have like already tried this with mobile. Now they are thinking like, why do we have this thing, mobile versus desktop? Why not just single platform, right?
Interesting.
So there is no such thing as mobile or desktop. There is only one thing called device,
Device.
and that device has a operating system, and that operating system has the same user experience whether you go on a web. So you see today Instagram, whether you go on a instagram.com or Instagram as an app, the
Same
experience is very same.
experience. Yeah.
And WhatsApp doesn't really want to create a web version, and the web version that they have is a copy of the mobile version.
Yeah.
So we as a developers and working closely with developers, we know that it's not, it's a very you know, fancy thing to say that we have two different or three different applications, but it's an extremely challenging task to update the mobile app and then the Android app and the iOS app and
Yeah.
a desktop and a website, and it's a crazy
Very
world out
difficult.
there. Very
It's a very difficult thing to sort of maintain, multiple apps on multiple platforms,
exactly,
ensure backward compatibility. So many issues out there. Yeah.
exactly.
So yes,
So
sounds
they,
it sounds interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so they are basically, I think that's my personal belief, that what they are working on is a single platform. There will be no such thing as desktop or mobile, because what you are going to use on your hardware is essentially the same OS which you are going to use on your mobile, because now the device which you are using as a laptop has the same amount of RAM as your mobile.
Yeah.
So
Omni
it's just,
OS.
yes,
Yeah.
so it's just a part, it's just a matter of the pixel size, right?
Right. Yeah.
Everything else is the same.
Correct.
And why do we have to, you know, sort of worry about, oh, I on my desktop I use this media player, and that file is supported like OGV, and that does not support my Mac. And so
Right.
they are
Yeah.
trying to get rid of this thing. And I think this will save time and effort of a lot of people, and
Interesting.
maybe those developers could, you know, think of solving some real time world problems rather than keep updating the old SDKs.
Yeah.
So that is
I
the
hear
third thing which I would work on.
a lot of passion behind that last statement you made right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So quickly jumping on to the next question. Right? I know we are short on time right now. I'll take two questions right now for you. So we know that AMP is just not about faster pages.
Hmm.
AMP is also about things becoming more dynamic. Right?
Right.
From just pages, the concept has now gone to ads, and then you have built a whole lot of stuff on that. You've built AMP forms. You've built a lot of AMP plugins as well, right? The one thing which has sort of excited me personally the most is AMP email.
Yeah.
They've spoken about AMP email as being this magical new age email,
Yeah.
which will completely revolutionize Gmail as well, right?
Hmm.
Just talk a bit more about AMP email. What do you think about AMP email?
AMP email is one of the best things ever happened to the web. So I don't think they've even realized what they have built. I mean, when they were building AMP, they really realized that. So AMP was always this static form of content that we used to get, sort of what we get right now today in SMS. SMS, you cannot interact with your SMS, right? It's just a static form of text. But the email is now transforming with the help of AMP email. So remember when we get a calendar when we get a calendar invite, we used to click on yes, and that yes would open another window. In that window, a lot of things would happen. Now there's no necessity to go to another window. The whole thing would just directly work on your email. So you could basically, so if you are, couple of examples I just saw, I think on AMP blog, the Google just published this. There's a company they are working with, and that company had built a prototype for voting. So you would just send a vote or a poll to all of your subscribers, and there are two buttons, yes and no. The moment you click on yes, the voting would be done and you would get the results automatically right from there. So AMP has actually transformed into a JavaScript canvas, which could do anything that a mobile or an app could do, as compared to how it was before. It was nothing but a static piece of text.
Really powerful, right?
Yeah.
Extremely, extremely powerful. And then, I've sort of also seen a thing called as AMP stories,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sounds a lot more like Snapchat stories and Insta stories and WhatsApp stories, but
Yeah.
then for publishers, right? I remember the other day I was swiping left on my Google News feed,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw the URLs changing, and I saw the same content, same news item.
Hmm.
So it was the number of corona cases in India,
Hmm.
but, I, but then I was seeing the news from different publishers,
Hmm.
just one single frame, right?
Right.
So what's AMP stories all about?
So I think what you were talking about might be the AMP carousel, and AMP stories is a totally different thing. It's just like you said, WhatsApp status. It's nothing but a ripoff of this whole new medium, which we kind of stumbled upon. So it used to be only images, videos, and text, but now the stories, because we today the attention span of a user is very low. Nobody kinds of reads. People hardly even like, as a writer, you are lucky if people even read your titles or headlines. You're very lucky. Half of the story like is transferred to the user. So if you don't get your title right or you don't get your images right, people are not gonna get engaged. So AMP stories, I think it's born out of that necessity. So attention span is low. So it's just like WhatsApp, but it works on web. So Google is experimenting with that medium. We know for the fact, and we always, every day, we and all of the people who are listening, we are using this WhatsApp status, but we don't know how we could reuse this for another medium. So what Google has done is they have opened this as a open source technology, and letting publisher use in a very different way, and kind of whole industry is just experimenting with this new format on how can we give compelling stories in a better, faster, and more entertaining way.
Interesting. Okay, Ahmed, I know we are way above time right now, but one last question for you. Uh, as somebody who has built a bootstrap company, right, for 10 years, as somebody who has been a developer, hands-on, as somebody who loves talking to publishers, who is deeply entrenched in the WordPress and the AMP ecosystem, right? What would be a word of advice to somebody, to a new developer who's looking at AMP today and wants to, hop on the ship?
So so if they just want to build a business, I think they should get the whole thing. They should rethink about the whole thing, because it's not just about building a business. You can't just wake up in the morning and say, okay, I want to build a business. That's not really how thing works. In my belief, i I think how it should be approached is like every day, if you can, and you can see this in every big business right now. I mean, essentially you are solving a problem. If you're not solving a problem, that business is like, you might not be in a very good position in the market. Because even in the COVID situation, we are, by the grace of God, we are very profitable, and we are growing as per our whatever plans we had, whatever suggestions we had in our internal discussions. We are still growing because that problem is still there, even with the whole COVID-19 situation. So I would say, always focus on what is the problem that you want to solve, and what is the problem that really excites you. Because it's not just about solving it for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. It's about how you stay in that game for a long time, and you need to have an internal motivation for you to keep waking up every single day from your bed, because there are days where people are going to say that it's not working, and it will not work, and that's our job to make it work, right? So it has to interest, that problem should really interest you, and you should be skilled enough to solve that, or passionate enough to solve that. And and then comes the money making part. So I think it definitely takes at least 3 to 4 years. And as it's a journey where you actually evolve, and get really, I mean, you realize a lot of things you never thought you could do.
Right.
So I would say that focus on the problem and work closely with your customers, because what you might think is a problem would not be an actual problem of a publisher. So if you are working with a publisher, or if you are working with any sort of customers,
Mhm.
try to talk to them, get to know them, understand what are the real problems of those people, and then don't start building it. I would say
Mhm.
think of it as a common problem.
Right.
So it's all about, for me, what has worked is solving a problem.
You know what? It's amazing that you have sort of presented it in such simple, easy to understand words. Focus on the problem, talk to your customers, right, and keep your passion on to and keep a focus on solving the problem, either with your passion or with your skills. But no matter what, keep just be at it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Incredibly simple, powerful words, right? Ahmed, thank you so much for being with us today. I have one question from the audience for you.
Sure.
This is Sahil. Sahil says that uh, he sees a lot of errors in the search console with AMP.
Yeah.
Uh, can you help me with this? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Sure.
So there are two ways of getting the help on the search console issues. The one is, so search console will say what are the problems, and they will also suggest a solution, right? So you can try that, or obviously that might require some technical skill, or you could just contact our support team and they would solve it for free for you.
See, you know what? I love this part. Do not, that's that's usually what I go for, right?
Yeah.
Work with the expert and let them do the job, right?
Yeah.
Because they understand this best.
There's a very I'm sorry to interrupt you
Huh.
over there, but there is a very important part that people don't understand about the AMP. The hardest thing about the AMP is being able to work with the customers, and since they are not aware of the technology, they are not aware of what validation error is, and there, when people are not aware of the technology, they get scared.
Yeah.
So we get at least, we attend at least 200 to 300 customers a day.
Wow.
So we have to closely work with solving their own problems and trying to, so that's one of the reasons. I mean, it takes a lot of time, effort, and resource to be able to solve search console issues of every other user, but we do that for free because we want to, make sure that people get that seamless experience. So I mean, there's a lot of work goes behind it, but we believe in giving the good user experience.
Amazing, amazing, Ahmed. Thank you so much for that. I have Varun who wants to, in fact, Varun and for everyone else, how can our listeners reach out to you?
So you can reach out to me. If you search for my name, Ahmed Kaludi, you would get my phone number, email, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. It's just out there everywhere. Just go to ahmedkaludi.com, or just contact on any of our product, and just email from anywhere of one of my product, and just tell them that I need to reach out to him, and then they would give my number. In fact, if you want to give my number, feel free to share in the panel
Yeah,
over here.
sure thing. Yeah. So we will ensure that we mention your contact, your email ID. Oh, okay, here we go. Right. Ahmed has already given his number. Right. Varun, I hope that sort of answers your. I hope you sort of find this valuable. Feel free to. So, but yes, I've had a great experience, working with Ahmed over the last few weeks, short relationship, still building up, but
Yep.
Been a pleasure so far. Ahmed, once
Same
again,
here.
thank you so much. Yes,
Thank
Sahil
you.
is the WhatsApp number. Yes, I have a bunch of people still chatting here. But yes, Ahmed, really appreciate you taking the time and joining us here for answering these questions.
It was really fun talking with you over the Zoom.
Nice.
Bye.
I'm gonna
Take care.
hit
Bye bye.
stop now.